Hi, Miss Connor. My name is Amy. I'm a dietetic intern. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you for asking. How are you?
I'm good. Did you get here okay?
Yep, we got here fine. I only live like 15 minutes away, so came right after work and yeah, now I'm here.
Good, good. I'm glad. So, do you want to tell me a little bit about yourself and why you're here today?
Yeah, sure. So, basically, I was just recently, I had a hunch that I had it, but it was just recently confirmed that I have hypercholesterolemia. Um, I went and saw my doctor a little bit ago, and he told me my lab values all came back and they looked a little irregular. um, and I kind of know what it means. My family, they've had it before, so I kind of had a feeling that I was going to get it as well. So I kind of have an idea of kind of what it means and like how it is and how it goes. But I just kind of wanted to get a little bit more information. I just got married recently, and we were hoping to just start a family soon. So I didn't know if there were any kind of risks that I should be looking out for, or just anything kind of that sort. So I just kind of came to get a little bit more information from you on it.
Okay, so how are you feeling since your diagnosis?
Well, I mean, I was obviously hoping that I wasn't going to be, diagnosed with it, but the doctor told me that if, you have a familial history of it, that I have at least 50% chance of getting it as well. So I definitely, was kind of expecting it, but I was hoping that I wasn't going to get it. So, it's a little bit, not, I don't want to say sad, but, I'm a little bit, down or whatever, but I know I'll be fine getting through it. Both my parents were fine, so yeah.
Yeah, so I can imagine that that must be really difficult to deal with that diagnosis, but it seems like you weren't all that surprised, and at least you have other family members who have it, so that might provide some sort of support system for you. You mentioned that
Mhm.
you have some other questions and concerns. Is there anything in specific that I can clear up for you before we start?
Well, yeah, I guess just I don't think that I'm gonna be able to take my cholesterol like lowering medications while pregnant. I just don't know if there's anything that maybe I'm doing wrong. I feel like I follow a pretty overall, like I said, my parents had it, so I kind of just grew up eating what they would eat, and I just feel like I have a pretty overall heart healthy diet. So, um, you know, I just want to make sure that it'd be okay for me and my husband to try and to kind of just make sure that there were no other risk factors that could, kind of come up, you know.
So you said your diet is usually heart healthy, and your parents had to have some modifications to their diet, so you're pretty familiar with it. Do you want to just tell me a little bit about what your diet typically looks like? We can just go through everything that you ate yesterday from the morning to night.
Sure. So yesterday morning, I had a piece of whole grain toast with some peanut butter on it, and I had an apple sliced up. And then for lunch, me and my husband went out to eat for lunch. I would say we kind of go out to eat kind of fairly often, a couple times a week we'll go. But we went yesterday to Outback Steakhouse. I got a French onion soup bowl for like an appetizer, and then I had just some salad with a little bit of Caesar dressing. It had tomatoes and cucumbers and broccoli and stuff. And then I had a piece of grilled. It was like a combo meal, so it was like grilled chicken and shrimp also. So I had that for lunch, and then um, I also had a small glass of Merlot with that too, while we were at lunch. And then when we came home for dinner, we were pretty full from lunch, so we had a little bit of a late dinner. And that was, I just kind of steamed some broccoli. Um, I like to add some squash a little bit because it's I think that's considered a fruit. So I try to get some zucchini and squash because I think those are fruit, right, with the seeds. I might be wrong, but anyways, so I kind of add like a little bit of that, and I just made us, again, just like some chicken breast on the stovetop and just a side of Spanish rice.
Okay, so thank you for sharing that with me. Do you mind if I just go through a couple clarifying questions from your diet recall?
Sure.
So you said that you went out to eat and that you eat out pretty regularly. How many times a week would you say?
Oh, I would say we go out to eat out of the 7 days a week. I would say maybe like 3 or 4 for like
Okay,
breakfast, lunch, or dinner, whatever meal.
so usually just one meal a day when you go out to eat?
Yeah, yeah, at least once, one time a day. Yeah.
Okay. And you mentioned that you're currently on medications. You said you're on a statin, I believe.
Yes, I am.
Okay. And do you participate in any physical activity regularly?
No, not really. Me and my husband, we just kind of, go to work. Um, I am a retail manager at a clothing store, so I walk around quite often. But I wouldn't say it's like for working out. And then my husband, he is a construction worker, so he's kind of doing some heavy lifting and stuff here and there. But yeah, nothing other than that.
Okay. And you said you're planning on having a baby, so congratulations.
Yeah.
And okay, so you did mention also that you believe you have a pretty, heart healthy diet. Do you want to elaborate on that, or have you had any previous nutrition education on what's, heart healthy?
Well, I know that it's like I have to eat like fruits and vegetables, obviously, and I definitely need to watch kind of what kind of fats that I eat, and like also salt and like my sodium. Um, so I think that's pretty much what it means. Like I said, I've never really seen a dietitian before, but my parents both really followed this diet, so I think I do a pretty good job at kind of just following in their footsteps a little bit.
Okay, yeah. So it seems like you are incorporating fruits and vegetables into your diet, and you seem to have a pretty well balanced diet. So do you usually cook, or does your husband cook?
Yeah, it'll be, we do a mix and match. If I'm too tired, he'll cook for me and kind of vice versa. So,
That's good. So have you been taught about cholesterol or what that means in the body or the different types of cholesterol?
yeah, so I know that my disorder, I know that it has to do with the LDL cholesterol, and a lot of things that I hear and I read about says that that's like the bad kind of cholesterol, and that's what causes like the buildup of plaque and such in my arteries and like my blood vessels and stuff. And that my body, because of my disease, is not able to kind of like remove it or like expel it from my body for some reason. But that's pretty much all I know about the disease. Other than that, I don't really know why it's caused.
Yeah, so that you actually seem to have a pretty good idea of, the disease itself. Um, would you want me to get a little bit more specific for you? Think that would be helpful?
Yeah, I think that'd be really helpful. Because I just this disease, like I said, it's like my parents have had it. I don't really understand why it kind of happens. So yeah, I would definitely like to learn a little bit more about it.
Yeah, so typically, like you said, LDL is the bad cholesterol that's in your body. That's what it's considered. It's more of a lipoprotein that holds the cholesterol. It transports it in your blood. Usually this cholesterol binds to receptors in the liver, and that's how it gets cleared out of the body. So what your condition is because of a genetic alteration in your genes, these receptors are very limited working, or they aren't working at all, depending on the severity of your condition. So your LDL gets trapped in the body for longer periods of time, and this is what causes your high cholesterol levels. And the statins that you're on, what some of these medications for your condition do is they increase the amount of receptors on the liver to kind of help get rid of it out of the blood. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah. So if I may, so you're saying that basically my body doesn't have these receptors that they need in order to take the LDL out of the blood, and that's why it kind of builds up. Is that right?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. So what the medications do, obviously, to help that is, increase these receptors. But like you said, you were concerned because you probably aren't going to be able to take these medications while you're pregnant. In your condition, it is, research shows that a combination of medication and lifestyle factors can make the risks of your condition better. But obviously, medication is the primary goal. But in conditions like this, where you're going to be pregnant, it is really important to make sure that your lifestyle modifications are made so that, things can go as smoothly as possible and there's no risks or increased complications with your disease state.
Okay.
So during pregnancy, your cholesterol levels are going to increase, and obviously, as you stated already, you pretty much understand the risks of this as far as heart disease. So there are some other risk factors for heart disease and some lifestyle modifications that can decrease those risks, such as smoking. Do you ever smoke?
No, not really. When I was in college, I did just like for a little bit, only in social events, but never after that. No.
Okay. Also, high blood pressure. Do you know if you have had any other medical conditions, or has your doctor said anything about your blood pressure being high?
Last time I saw him, he said it was slightly elevated, but I think it was more due to like anxiety. I wasn't sure if it was actually because it was of my like my intake.
Okay. And then, so we can talk about that a little bit more. And some of the other factors are, physical activity can decrease your risk, and a heart healthy diet, like you mentioned. So you talked a little bit about the types of fat in your diet. Do you know the different kinds of fat?
Um, Not really. I wasn't sure. I actually didn't really know that there were different types of fat.
Yeah, so I can definitely go over that with you. Let me provide you with a handout and we can kind of go through it together. How does that sound?
Yeah, let's do it.
So the main types of fat that are going to cause this increase in cholesterol levels are called saturated fat. And these fats are mostly found in animal products such as, fatty meats, milk, dairy. Do you consume dairy often?
Yeah, sometimes, yeah, in my cereal and stuff.
Do you know what kind of milk you usually use? Is it regular or low fat?
I think it's 1%. I'm not sure what that's classified as.
Okay, yeah, so that would be a pretty low fat milk. So that's a really good option. Um, and then, so these are just some of the things that we can substitute with. So instead of having whole milk, cheese, yogurt, fatty meats, and do you usually cook with butter or oil?
Yeah, I usually cook with like olive oil.
Okay, yeah, that's really good. So it does seem like you have mastered the right types of fat, so that's good. Trans fats are another big part of the diet that should be avoided just because it does increase your LDL cholesterol and it also decreases your good cholesterol, which is HDL, so that's something you want to avoid. Do you know what kind of foods are you can find trans fat in?
No, I'm not sure.
Yeah, so this is basically going to be a lot of baked goods, fried foods. If you are looking at a nutrition label, it could say hydrogenated vegetable oils. So those are just some of the things you want to look out for. Do you have any experience reading nutrition labels?
I do slightly. That's only because I just try to watch out, kind of like I said, for like my sodium and stuff like that. But I don't really know if I'm reading them the right way. I kind of just look for one thing and just kind of go about my day. So I wouldn't mind going over those as well.
Yeah, we can definitely go over that. So it does seem like you are having a pretty good diet with the right fats, but you did mention about your sodium intake. You said you try to limit that. Is there any specific numbers you look out for?
Um, Not really. I think my doctor said something like I should have less than like 3,000 milligrams or something like that. I don't really know if, again, I just think because he's my doctor, I just kind of go with it. But I don't know if that's right or if I should be consuming any less or anything. So I just try to stay under that range.
Yeah, so the recommendation is around 2,000 milligrams. And do you usually just look at the nutrition label, or do you know any certain foods that are high in sodium?
Sometimes I'll look at the nutrition label if I'm not sure, like if I can't just tell right off the bat. Like obviously I know French fries have salt on them and stuff, but if I'm looking at other things, like if I was to look at my cereal box, I would just, make sure that if there's any sodium in there or anything. But other than that, I mean, I'm not really sure because some things have sodium in them and you would never think that they do. So
Yeah, so that's a really good point actually, because a lot of people don't really know where their sodium comes from, and you do seem to be very conscious of, looking at your nutrition labels and looking out for those things. So the main source of sodium in people's diet is actually, restaurant foods and processed foods. This is because salt is used as a preservative. So oftentimes when you eat out, this is where you're going to find a lot of sodium in your diet. So that is something you want to monitor and be careful of. I'm going to also pull up a nutrition label so we can look at that together so you can kind of get a better idea of what you're looking for. How does that sound?
yeah, that sounds good. Oh, wow.
So this is a typical nutrition label. And with your condition, some of the things you want to look out for, like you mentioned, was sodium. So a good way to kind of recognize what's high and what's low, I like to go by percentages. This is going to be based on a 2,000 calorie diet over here, these daily value percentages. So typically if something's closer to 5%, it's going to be lower in that nutrient. And typically if something's higher than 20% or around 20%, it's going to be a little bit higher. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
So on this nutrition label, these are just kind of comparing the different levels of sodium. But let's take a look at, another nutrient. So what about on this left one over here for saturated fat? Would that be high or low?
It looks like it'd be low.
Yeah, good. So those are some of the things you want to look out for is saturated fat and the sodium. Just one other thing you want to look for is trans fat. So you typically want the trans fat to be 0 or 0%. You do want to be careful because down here in the ingredients, it might say 0, but down here you want to look for hydrogenated vegetable oil because that's also a trans fat. So that's just something else to look out for. And do you have any other questions about that so far?
Just one. I see that it's, one is regular chicken with noodle soup and then the other one's low sodium. So the one that's low sodium has more saturated fat and total fat. Should I be more concerned about my total fat or my sodium or both?
So with your condition, you do want to be monitoring your sodium intake, but it is honestly more important for you to be worrying about your saturated fat. If I were you, I would really try and just look for both, something that's generally pretty low in both nutrients. You don't have to make sure everything's like 3%, but making sure things are, closer to that 5% would definitely be ideal. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So one other thing that I just wanted to briefly touch on is something called soluble fiber. Do you know any foods that contain fiber in general?
I know that like some granola bars have fiber in them, I think. And then there's like that Special K cereal that says like it has a lot of fiber in it. But
Yeah.
that's it.
So fiber is usually going to be found in grains and fruits and vegetables. But something special about soluble fiber, so there's two types of fibers, soluble and insoluble. And foods that have this soluble fiber, they're going to bind with cholesterol in your digestive system, so you're not going to absorb it. So some foods that contain this are apples and oatmeal and sweet potatoes and beans. Do you typically eat any of these foods, or do any of these foods sound like something you'd want to include?
Yeah, I mean, I think that all those foods taste pretty good relatively, and I think that I can, easily match them and pair them with other foods like that I eat throughout the day. So yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So out of everything we talked about, would you be interested in setting a few goals, ways you can kind of improve your diet just to make sure that everything goes smoothly with your condition?
Yeah, I think I for sure would, and I would love to come see you again. From what you've already told me, I can tell that me eating out a lot is probably not the best option for me right now. So yeah, I would definitely love to set some goals and possibly work on them until the next time I come in.
Yeah, so like you mentioned about eating out, would you be interested in limiting that in the future? How often you eat out?
Yeah, I definitely think that I can, cut back a little bit on eating out. I have plenty of food at home. Me and my husband just kind of like to get out of the house and just kind of get outside and stuff and just do something. So maybe instead of going to a restaurant where we sit down inside anyways, maybe we could, I don't know, go for a walk or have a picnic or something outside, just the two of us.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. It'll be practice for when you have kids and you have to tell them, though we have food at home
Yeah,
line.
exactly.
So I think that's really great. So how many times a week do you think you want to try doing that to start out?
I would definitely say maybe cut back to just maybe going out twice a week and maybe, substituting those other times that we want to go out for like a little just outdoor picnic or just cooking at home.
Yeah, that sounds like a really great goal. And it seems like you already have some alternatives figured out and you seem like it'll be pretty easy for you to accomplish. So is there anything else that you want to maybe adjust before we meet next time?
Um, would it be recommended that I work out at all or try to like just increase my physical activity?
Yeah, so I only mentioned it briefly, but yeah, so definitely increasing your physical activity is a great way to just keep yourself healthy and overall reduce your risk factors for other types of diseases in general. So I think that would be a really great idea. Have you ever tried any physical activity in the past that worked for you?
I used to go to the gym a lot when I was younger, in college and stuff, but I just kind of fell off when I got my job and just started working and then, we got married and everything in the wedding. So, but yeah.
So do you think you'd be interested in going back to the gym?
Yeah, I definitely think I could go back to the gym. Absolutely. I think I'm pretty sure I still have my membership and everything. So,
Okay, so is that something you want to try and do? How often do you think that you would want to do that?
maybe I'll start out with like another, just like 2 or 3 times a week, just something small to kind of get myself back into a routine.
Yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Starting slow is always, more sustainable. So do you think that 2 times a week sounds good?
Yeah, I think 2 times a week is pretty good and reasonable.
Is there any specific days that you think might be easier than others?
Definitely the weekends, I think, because I work every day throughout the week, Monday through Friday. So definitely the weekends, I think, probably be easier.
Okay. And, if you didn't want to do that, another option would just be to, walk for a few times a day or just do some light activity. But you did say that at work you are walking around a lot, so that also is physical activity. So that sounds like a really good plan. So I'm going to provide you with my contact information. And thank you again for, coming to see me and tell me about yourself. Do you have any other questions?
I don't think so. If I do have any questions, I'll definitely just give you a phone call or shoot you an email or something.
Yeah, that sounds good. Feel free to reach out with any other questions that I can help you with. And we can meet again in 2 weeks. How does that sound?
Yeah, that sounds good.
All right. So here's my contact information. I'm also going to give you the handouts that we went over so you can look them over. And if you have any other questions, you can just bring them to the next session.
Okay, that sounds great.
All right. So enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.